It's not the house that's haunted. It's your son.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was.
What is going on, guys? Happy spooky season. Again, we're still in that preparation for October and getting ready for Halloween. But I am here, MJ, as your host for Slashers in Sync. And joining me, as always, is, of course, my co-host.
Marvelous. Hi.
It's very rare, right, Marva, where we can sit down, find a movie that really hasn't been hyped up amongst friends who's gotten marketing on the level of like Smile or something along those lines, and we sit down, watch that movie, and then say that was a pretty good watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare nowadays. I know you and I were very obsessed with Shudder at one point and trying to watch a lot of Shudder films, and a lot of them were hit or miss, at least to us.
They were.
So you told me through text and then later in person multiple times that you started this film at work on her lunch break, and you were hyped about it.
I was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I kind of made a commitment to myself to try and find like a new horror film, especially like a newly recorded horror film, because something that I do, and I know MJ also does, which is we tend to rewatch a lot of things and a lot of movies that we've already seen on multiple occasions. We do look for new things, don't get me wrong, but we find comfort in what we've already seen before. And so I just wanted to challenge myself, and I've been challenging myself every week to find a good film. And if I feel I find something that's like noteworthy, then he and I will sit down and watch it, or at the very least, I feel like he and I can share this experience. I started at work, and usually I restart it whenever I come home to finish it off with him. And this movie in particular had caught my attention for like the last like 4 days last week. And I couldn't really sit down to watch too much of it, but anytime, even if it was for 5 minutes, I caught myself being captivated by it. And I thought it would be a good watch with me and MJ. So I think it was either the Friday or the Saturday of I sat you down and, we watched the film from start to finish. And honestly, even though I was rewatching it again, unlike The Deliverance, I actually sat back and I did not move from my seat during the first 20 minutes, even though I had seen it. Yeah. Watching it again held the same amount of, I guess, captivation, if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I completely understand that. When you described it to me, I was just like, "No, that sounds dope. Let's give it a shot." Mm-hmm. We were pretty insistent on watching it fairly quickly, not just because of how hype you were over it, but we've been trying to implement what to watch and what movies we've watched recently, and Marva's been handling that over on TikTok. So if you're not subscribed, if you're not following us over there, go check us out at Slash and Sync. Links down below in the description everywhere, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on your favorite podcast platform. We're available on everything pretty much.
Yeah, we're multi-platform podcast,
at this point,
if you will.
Which we should be. We've been doing this for 6-7 months now.
Yeah.
So, But anyways, Under Paris. I like that name too, by the way. It's not like something in the water or or Great White.
And mind
Devil,
you, this isn't an American-made film. This is a French-made film. So the translation that we get on Netflix is Under Paris, but the title of the film originally is Sous la Seine, which is in the Seine or under the Seine, I believe, one of the two.
Right.
So it's
Seine
nice.
River.
Yeah, the Seine River, which is located in Paris. So all in all, the title both in French and in English is really nice. And there's diving into the history of the film, I realized there was apparently a similar occurrence that had happened in France. I want to say in the late 2010s, where a shark did get lost in the Seine River. But they were able to essentially escort the shark back out. Nothing like this happened within the film, mind you.
This had to have some inspiration on this film.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was in 2022. I apologize. It was in 2022 where like some form of shark. I wrote it down. It's like a poor beetle shark, a species that typically inhabits like cold waters, was found in the Seine River near Rouen, which a lot of people theorize that it inspired the story of Under Paris altogether. Not only that, but the movie kind of references a triathlon and then another major event happening shortly afterwards, the Olympics, which the Paris Olympics happened earlier this year. So this is a very current film, if like you pay attention.
I was surprised by that too, that they were straight up dropping the Olympics and like they're preparing for it and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's kind of dope that they're implementing real life events with this film and kind of what's to push the narrative, because that plays a huge part in the government being very much against trying to handle this in an emergency situation. They wanted it very much under the wraps.
Like hush hush. Because this movie kind of like highlights a lot of faults of people in multiple different like levels of authority, if you will.
Right.
Don't mind you though, like this film also has a lot of flaws because like, and I even wrote it down here, there's like small factual errors where like the kid's magnet that they're using to like magnet fish in the beginning of the film, and they get like a World War II bombshell, that's made out of brass and that's technically not magnetic. Not only that, but I think the baby whale that we see that's caught in the net, like the divers in the initial scene say that the whale had been suffering for days, when in reality, like if a baby whale doesn't get air, it suffocates. It doesn't end up consuming on plastic. And then someone also mentioned that the map that was used in the end credit scene with like Sudan and South Sudan was like a very much outdated map, like 2011 map, before South Sudan, I guess, eradicated themselves or like emancipated themselves. So there's those flaws. But watching it for the story and everything that's conveyed in the film, I feel like it's a decent watch altogether, minus these like factual errors and just like minute errors here and there, at least in my eyes.
So right away, this movie doesn't play. You're put right into the thick of it. The movie starts off with this group. I guess they're like an exposition group. They're on a boat.
A research group of sorts,
filming, doing documentation on plastic in the ocean and what, we as men are responsible for, what we've done to the planet, what we've done to our ocean. Very sad because they show in depth exactly what that looks like. And
so that island that we're always taught in school about how it's made out of plastic and it's in the Pacific and it's like in the Southwest Pacific. And it's just a massive, just bunch of nets, bottles, anything and everything that we dump into the ocean or dump into our sewage lines, which leads to the ocean. It's shown there. And in the documentaries that I saw growing up, it wasn't as severe as what I saw on the screen in this movie. I don't know if they actually flew out there and they had a boat there to where these actors were forced to like be around all this plastic, or if it was just a recreation of the whole thing, maybe a mix of the two. But I already knew how bad off the ocean was as far as the microplastics and just like what we toss in there. But truly seeing it, or at least seeing a film trying to capture a replication of it, made me very sad and very disappointed. And it's not just us, mind you. It's not just like the day-to-day average Joe like you and me. It's also the major companies, the major corporations who are also contributing to this fact. So everybody's played their part in the state of our climate, if you will, and that's like the tone set right in the beginning of the film.
So, in the middle of recording for the documentary, Sophia gets word from one of her crew members that the shark that she tagged with Beacon 7, I guess a while back, is coming in close, and they want to go ahead and get a sample because they couldn't do this last time, so everyone's pretty ecstatic about that. Now, what I find hilarious but also terrifying is Sophia named this shark Lilith. So if you're not familiar with that, I don't have to go too much into detail on it. I'm sure you've at least heard the name, but it's hilarious that the shark's name is Lilith. Yeah,
and it comes full circle, funny enough, because for those of you who don't know, Lilith is like the mother of demons, if you will. And like I said, it comes full circle in this movie, especially
Yes.
the name of the shark.
Everyone except Sophia and her tracking partner dive into the water. So it's like her whole crew, including her husband, right? I
Yeah,
believe.
her husband and like 2 other guys dive in. Sophia herself is also a diver. There's this one other woman on board who has like pink hair. I didn't really know exactly her role in it, but I think she was more of like the tech.
We don't see her, right, later on?
No, she doesn't even speak about like the crew's death and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But essentially everybody just gets into gear and they hop in and they jump into this like polluted water. I think a couple of the people like even complain about being within the water with all the plastic, but
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I would too. But they come across the sperm whale, the baby one that you talked about a little
Yes.
while ago, and the goof that happened with that. But what catches their real attention is the fact that there's a fresh bite right on the body. And it's
there's-
a big bite,
It's
too.
a big chomp. There's blood around it everywhere. And me seeing the poster of the film with the shark, immediately I think, okay, well, the shark took a bite and it's close by, and these guys are not moving away from the blood that's in the water. Something's going to go wrong.
And yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Like I said, they threw us right into the thick of this. This isn't like a playful intro. This isn't Hereditary where,
It's a very slow build.
yeah, like this is right in the first 5 minutes of the film.
Yeah.
They get surrounded by a bunch of sharks, and it looks like Mako's. But the one thing that I guess is confusing everybody, not just the husband but also Sophia, is the fact that they don't hunt in packs.
Makos are solo sharks.
Yeah.
They only group together whenever it's time for mating season, and even then it's like rather chaotic. So these sharks aren't supposed to be hunting in packs or in herds, and that's what throws off the crew entirely. And then lo and behold, I think it's Chris, Sophia's husband, who visually sees Lilith swimming up, and this is when Sophia and her partner, while they're still on the boat, realize that Beacon 7 or Lilith is coming closer and closer to where the divers are at. Obviously, because there's blood.
The closer she comes, though, the more freaked out everyone gets.
Yeah.
Because she's a lot bigger than before, a lot bigger than what the husband remembers, so much that he has to confirm with Sophia if this is the
He
shark.
questions her on several occasions. Are you sure this is her? Like, this can't be Beacon 7. She's way too big. And mind you, all the divers have body cams, and Sophia sees Lilith, and when it finally clicks for her that this is the shark, she immediately wants a sample. She wants to figure it out. Like, Lilith has grown too much in the short amount of time. I think it's only been a few months, and she's doubled in size.
Yeah.
And that's not normal. So
She almost looks like the size of a great white, if
not bigger.
Yeah.
So I think at this point it's when Chris and the rest of the gang want to get out of the water. There's a bunch of smaller sharks swimming around the carcass of the sperm whale. They have Lilith who's like circling them. And even the divers know at one point that the smaller sharks seem to be like nervous, but also curious. And that's not the type of, I guess, mood you want to catch a shark, because if they're nervous enough and if they're curious enough, they'll go around and they'll take that small nibble, and then that leads to other things.
Yeah.
So they want to get the hell out of there. Sophia kind of urges Chris to get that sample because this is the first, again, they missed Lilith the last time, and Sophia really wants to figure out what is going on with Lilith, because all she knows is that Lilith is a Mako, nothing more, at least at this point. And when Chris goes to take the sample, he does it in like such a weird way that threw me off the first time. And watching it the second time, that's when I really realized that Chris fucked up. And it's that he didn't go and like softly poke Lilith. No, he grabbed the biopsy needle and like tried to take a stab at her, quite literally. And Lilith freaks out, swims off, and kind of like what you said, we're thrown into the thick of it where she circles back, but she attacks them all from behind and like tears them apart, mauls at them.
Yeah.
The water's turning red. Like Sophia and her partner are watching the body cam suddenly disappear, turn off, and blood like in the water around these body cams turn red before it shuts off. So clearly you know what's going on.
Yeah. Sophia, and I guess in a brave manner, dives into the ocean, and she's doing this with no gear.
Yeah.
Right into the
no
middle
diving gear, just snorkel and bodysuit.
right into the middle of the debris and everything. And she comes face to face with Lilith, and right when Lilith goes for the kill, that's when Sophia shoots at the harpoon. But what Sophia doesn't really account for, though, is Lilith diving down into the water while Sophia is still attached to her. And keep in mind, she has no gear. None.
No diving gear. I think she straps on the belt for the harpooning gun, and when Lilith reacts the way that she does, my stomach dropped.
Yeah.
Watching Sophia get pulled into the water, like, she is bleeding from her foot because the rope keeps cutting into her. She can't get the belt off for the harpoon because Lilith is just moving too fast. And then the movie focuses on the water pressure and her eardrum tearing, and you see the blood come out of her.
It's like zooming in, and you don't know what, because it shows a faraway shot of her getting pulled, which looked crazy.
Yeah.
And then it's zooming in, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen? And she zooms in, and then all of a sudden you see the red in the bubbles. Just, and I was like, fuck, bro, that must have fucking hurt, dog.
And I was convinced at this point in time, whenever Sophia, if she would to resurface, she was going to be deaf, or at least partially deaf. But lo and behold, she figures out a way to undo the buckle. She swims up to the surface. I don't know how.
Yeah, but the way they shot that, it looked like she pulled her into like darkness.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe not that dark, but at least enough to where, like, I don't think a human should have been able to swim up, at least when they're injured.
Very little sunlight is coming through, and like insinuating the amount of pressure that Sophia had to undergo for her eardrums to be torn. It's at least 25 to 30 feet under the water.
Yeah.
But maybe Sophia's the more experienced one out of the entire crew, at least whenever it comes to diving. I don't know.
It could have just been, cinematics. Like, it looked like it pulled her. It looked like she pulled her like 80 feet, but like you said, it was probably just like 30 or something.
At the same time, though, like, she was screaming while she was being pulled underwater, so I'm pretty sure she should have drowned instead of coming up to the surface and taking that iconic, like, gasp for air. But I'm not gonna lie, whenever Sophia finally comes back up and you see the blood in the water just pouring out of her, like, mouth and her face, and she's, like, gasping, it brought like a certain amount of chills to me.
Yeah.
And then you see the title card.
Yeah, the title card. That whole scene was shot wonderfully. And then you get to the title card, like you said. One of the better title cards. I still think Evil Dead Rise still holds the title for some of the best, or one of the best horror title cards in a while. Like with the girl coming out the lake and then the text rising up.
Yep.
Like that to me is still probably the best, if not one of the best we've seen. Mm-hmm. But this was a good second.
It was a good follow-up.
Yeah.
Like a good runner-up, if you will. Don't follow up a runner-up.
But I'll go ahead and let you go.
At this point in the film, once the title card is rolled out, you see a scene panel out where it says 3 years later.
Yes.
And the movie pans over to an aquarium and a tour guide. And lo and behold, this tour guide is Sophia. And Sophia is like starting a conversation with a bunch of, I think, middle schoolers about how if they want to be ocean conservationists, or if they want to like have an impact on climate change. And of course, with every kid group, there's this little group of people who are going against the grain and like breaking the rules and so on and so forth. And there's these two boys on their phone, and they seem to be giggling at something that's on their screen. One of the students asked a question to Sophia, and it's a serious question. And Sophia is like in the middle of giving her answer when this one kid interrupts her and just says, "So what happened to your crew 3 years ago? Did they really die?" And you can tell that Sophia is still grieving because she completely shuts down. One of the other kids points out that she's turning red, but as an adult viewer, you know that this is her trying to like cover up her grief and her embarrassment, if you will, of like her crew dying under her watch. Aside from that one chick, but I mean, nobody seems to talk about her or bring her up again.
Yeah.
So Sophia just kind of like doesn't say a word anymore, breaks off. But mind you, in the middle of all this, you see this one character, this girl with like blue hair, come up and is watching her from the sidelines. When Sophia leaves the aquarium, this girl runs up towards her and is calling out for her. Sophia stops for a moment, and then this girl introduces herself by the name of Mika and says, you know, like, we are essentially taking up what you left off 3 years ago. We're trying to conserve the ocean. We're trying to conserve the sharks and make sure overfishing doesn't occur and so on and so forth, and we want to continue your legacy, come and look at our new incorporation or our new like group, if you will. So this way you can see exactly what you inspired. And Sophia gets curious enough to where she follows Mika to the ocean conservationists or at least conservationists of this time's their hideout, which is a really cool abandoned building. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I also liked, so I didn't bring this up to you when we watched the film, but I like the setup they have. It was like a very realistic setup. Did you catch how she was using a PC and a RGB keyboard? Like, it wasn't like some Tony Stark, like
some fancy ass shit.
Yeah, it was just
holographic, steel, titanium. No, it was everything that you could buy at a store.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot recently in films that use technology, like even Fast and the Furious, like the type of shit that like Ludacris's character is doing on screen.
It's very futuristic.
Yeah, whereas this, which is very much a
realistic.
We hacked into a database and we're just using our PCs and that's
simple as that.
Yeah.
And Mika gives the grand tour, and like whenever you see the hideout of the new conservationist group, it's like I said, it's really cool. It's an old abandoned building. You can tell the building's like hundreds of years old, but you have projections around everywhere of the ocean. You have a whole team is like sectioned off into what they're responsible for. And Mika's partner, Ben, is a hacker.
Yes.
And she's the one with the PC and the RGB keyboard. But the type of hacker that Ben is the one who shuts off trackers of shark poachers. So essentially the shark poachers going around and hack into the tags that a bunch of researchers place on sharks in order to hunt them down and kill them for like glory or for their fins or both. One of the three. And Ben and Mika are at least responsible for making sure that these poachers aren't successful. So Ben shuts off the trackers and the shark gets to go on free. And we see it live right there, right in front of us. So it's pretty cool. The one thing though that Mika and Ben introduced to Sophia is the fact that beacon number 7, beacon for Lilith, seems to be transmitting from Paris.
Yeah.
In the Seine River. And then Mika also introduces the idea, or at least proposes the idea to Sophia that Lilith is here. And reason behind it is because not a few days ago, a car crashed into the Seine River. Divers went to go look for the body and they couldn't find the body. So more likely than not, Lilith is under distress. She's hungry, so she's forced to eat whatever falls into the river. And Mika seems to be convinced that she can beckon Lilith back into the ocean with this device that her group is making, almost like calling a dog back home.
Yeah.
And
which we didn't really get too much on that really in this film, but
not too much. No,
I guess it's not the point, but it was like an interesting concept that kind of just got dropped like halfway through, you know. So
yes and no, because it gets revisited again later on in the film. We don't see the making of this device, but it sounds really cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Especially like something that you can use to control sharks. Like by all means, show me. A lot of people are trying to still figure this out to this day.
Right.
But you can tell Sophia hasn't really processed all the grief that she's had to endure whenever it comes to losing her crew, all due to Lilith, and all like she probably feels responsible for it because she pushed for her team to stay in the water. She snaps, she breaks away. She keeps telling Mika that Lilith is a dangerous like animal, and not only that, the tag must have fell off and like swam against the current and fell into like the Seine River.
She doesn't believe her.
She's in complete denial. So she runs home. Brings out her old laptop that she used to use for all her research, and you get to see all the old footage that was filmed for the crew, and then you get to see that final footage that was filmed, which is the body cams of the divers of the opening scene.
Right. And she then gets to see that Ben was telling the truth. When she accesses the live feed, she then sees Lilith swimming in the Seine River.
Yeah. It's the exact same imaging that Ben pulled up for Sophia. Lilith is there, like exactly where Ben had her.
So, Sophia then decides to head out to the Seine River. We see her kind of grab like some gear and stuff, and Mika and Ben are already out there due to the original plan that they had proposed to Sophia. Mm-hmm. So she's there underwater, and you can already tell right away that something isn't right. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, the one thing that I like about this movie is that I think it creates the tension of sharks being around you, but in a very realistic way. Because regardless of how this shark grew or what happened to Lilith in the ocean, why she's so huge compared to other sharks from her species, at least similar species. Like, whatever happened to her, it's not like she's pulling up on you and like ripping your head off and drinking your blood. Like, she's not pulling up on you and immediately attacking you. She does like what you told me before. She kind of circles around, and that's how a shark would react to you in person, you know, when they see you underwater in real life.
Yeah, curious.
They're curious creatures. I kind of like how they implemented that. It's very different than like something is in the water.
Yeah, or like Jaws, where it's very much like...
Or even the Black Demon, that one oil film, you know, with the... I mean, that was a whole entirely different thing. That wasn't even a shark, it was a spirit. But regardless, you get the idea. We've watched a lot of shark movies recently. I don't know why. I
have a fear of being attacked by a shark. I'm not going to lie. So I think I lived through my fear through exposure therapy, and this is my exposure therapy.
But going back to my point, Mika can't shake this feeling, and neither can we.
No,
like, we knew something was going to happen.
You keep seeing her like look over her shoulder, and mind you, the water in the Seine River is fucking disgusting. It's gross. It's murky. You can't see anything. You can probably see maybe 4 feet in front of you, but yet still the movie does a very good job of what you said, like building up that tension. You know something's in the water, even if you can't see the shadow, and you start seeing the shadow of Lilith towards the end of Mika's dive when a bunch of different lights are going off, not just with Ben pointing her flashlight into the water, but also the river police swimming through, chasing off Ben, shining their light down, Mika's own underwater flashlight being there too, and then the lights going off for the actual river police too, like the regular siren lights. So all of this is happening, and my first watch of the scene, I was convinced Mika was going to get a chomp taken out of her. Yeah. But that doesn't happen.
So the river police come across her, and Mika then gets taken to the station. Now, before we get to the station scene, we see the police help out the homeless people, bring them clothes, food, books, even giving them directions on where they can go because of the triathlon that's coming up. Yeah. And kind of letting them know it's just for you just need to relocate for a few days. Yeah, till the end of the week is done, and then you can come back. And I just thought to myself, very different than how homeless people are treated over here. Very different. Yeah. And who knows, maybe it was just a whole bunch of French propaganda for all we know, but lo and behold, seeing that on screen, that's not something a lot of Americanized films show. They don't show the homeless. They don't show authoritarian figures being kind to these homeless folk either. They're usually shoveling them around, or they're caught in the crossfire. The most I've ever seen any cop in a film do to bring people books or and I'm not saying they don't do it in real life. I'm just saying the way Hollywood's presented it is they're doing it, but probably because it's a drug dealer and they're making a deal. Yeah. Or they're bringing them confiscated CDs, shit that they have in evidence, and they can sell it, shit like that. It's never out of the goodness of their own heart, at least in the films. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about real life, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Kind of funny. So yeah. Anyways, we then skip over to the police station. She's being processed. The chief of river police, she gets interrupted while investigating Mika about the homeless man that he had visited last night, since they're found dead in the water now. Yeah, the investigation, you said, gets interrupted, and Adil, the chief of the river police, gets pulled out to investigate the body of the homeless person we got to see not maybe a few hours earlier in the film, but 20 minutes for us in the film. And when it cuts over to the body, it's just the top half. It's not the bottom half. Yeah. And mind you, Sophia is still being shown tracking down Lilith with the beacon that she has on her. And comes across the moment where this homeless man is being pulled into the water, or at least in the water, I should say, and his dog barking into the water too. But I think she was just maybe a minute too late, because she does not see the blood or Lilith. We know the homeless man is in the water because there's a book floating there. But again, the morning after, it gets confirmed with his bottom half of his body missing. Mika brings Sophia into the mix of the police by saying that she can probably identify the bite marks. And Sophia immediately says, yes, this is a shark attack. This is shark bites. And like any good horror movie, the police are skeptical. Yeah. They are not ready to accept the fact that there is a shark in the Seine. I feel like in 2024, that subplot just has to like die down at this point, dude. It's like
I don't think it ever will.
They have to create something new, dog. It's like
I don't think it ever will. That's the thing, because like, why would they believe that a saltwater shark is in the freshwater? Like, biologically speaking, that's not supposed to be possible, because anything that's been like accumulated, or at least like not accumulated, but they've gotten used to being in salt water. If you put them in fresh water, their cells like oversaturate and they explode. Yeah. If you put something that's used to fresh water into salt water, it's too salty, so they implode, they shrivel up. So they have the right amount of skepticism, if you will, but at the same time, they still get their gear on and they're trying to figure all this out. Sophia still has access to her tracking device on her special laptop. And Mika now has been placed on the sidelines. So Sophia onboards the raft that the police have, and they go dive and they go search for the shark, for Lilith. And this dive scene had me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, not just because we know Lilith is there. Like, we know she's in the water.
Yeah.
We as the viewer already know this. The police, skeptical. But what makes it even worse is that Mika didn't just leave. She stuck around, but was hiding in the back, watching everything. And she's making calls to Ben, because Ben is back at the base. And during all of these scenes of cutting back and forth of like the main river police officer kind of going back and forth with Sophia over the shark, we're then getting like silhouettes of a shark behind like this caged or window thing or whatever. Yeah,
the camera shots were really cool, like showing how Lilith would swim back and forth between under the infrastructures and into the open water of the Seine. And then you see her shadow circulating the divers again. What's interesting though is that Sophia makes a comment, and I think this is what kind of throws me off too, which is that with the size that Lilith had, she should have been showing up in the water whenever she was swimming there, but she wasn't. So I don't know if she was swimming deep enough to make sure you couldn't see her, or the water was just that polluted to where you just it could have been just like a mix of the two.
I think it's a mix of the two. I think the whole thing with the tombs and the structure was that she was like a little deeper than what you would imagine the regular water is there in the river, you know.
And that's how she was able to hide and appear like as if she's under the buildings when really, like, how architecturally, how could that make sense?
Right.
Later on in the film, we find out just how it makes sense. But at that given point in time, at this point in time in the film, there's a lot of like unanswered questions.
And then don't forget, we also have the tension of Ben and Mika arguing over about turning off the tracker.
Yeah, because Mika's convinced at this point that Sophia is helping the police and that Sophia wants Lilith dead. To Mika's credit, Sophia does, but not necessarily because she wants to aid the police, but just because of the fact that she knows that Lilith is not normal. Like, most sharks don't go out of their way to chomp down on humans. Again, most. So...
which, I mean, says a lot about Sophia, because I don't think she ever mentions of killing Lilith. She actually just wants to, like, get her out. Like,
So I think
I think Mika was just too much in her own ass at that point to, like, really not see that. But, you know.
And we see more of Mika being in her own ass later on in the film. But at this point in time, like, Ben even is like a little scared of shutting off the tracker, but she still does it anyway because Mika pushes her. And once the tracker is shut off, that's whenever the anxiety really picks up. And it seems like Lilith like goes into full like hunting mode, but she's stalking her prey. And I don't think she makes any kind of like moves towards the diving team, but the diving team makes it up to the raft just in time. Again, I'm convinced that Lilith is going to take a chomp out of these divers before they make it onto the raft, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
Again. However, like at this point, the divers all could tell that there was a presence under the water, and it was a presence they did not want to mess around with.
They didn't even see Lilith, but they were scared enough to say, yeah, we believe her.
Yeah.
We believe Sophia.
Yeah. Adil is still like pretty skeptical, but because his crew and his team seems to be backing up Sophia, even without physically seeing Lilith, he kind of jumps on board. I'll kind of just let you take it from here.
Yeah, there's like a little altercation there where like Abdul thinks that Sophia wanted to harm the crew
Because of the tracker turning off
but
halfway, yeah.
that's not really the case. That's when Sophia sees Mika fleeing the scene.
Yeah.
She then makes it back to the base and confronts Mika. Mika lashes out. They get into an argument, and that says that Sophia has taken the wrong side, that she needs to be on the right side. We got to preserve ocean life. We got to preserve aquatic life.
Yeah.
And try to save Lilith and not kill her. Sophia keeps emphasizing that Lilith is dangerous and not like other sharks, which kind of comes into play later.
Yeah.
But Mika insults Sophia, and of course, Sophia storms off. She doesn't have a good track record at that base, man. She's always leaving angry.
Mika or Sophia?
Sophia.
Yeah. So it's a 2 for 2 right now that she's like storming off angry. But Mika does something pretty interesting. She almost broadcasts a video of herself.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if it's on like local news channels, takes over news channels, or it gets placed on everybody's phones or social media. But at that given moment, you see Mika talking out to Paris, to France itself. And then you see everybody on their phones also watching her video. You see a lot of people who've been interacting with that video. And you see people writing up posters, putting up banners, making t-shirts, and creating a whole movement to save Lilith, to save these sharks. And essentially the way that Mika is presenting the whole story is that her generation is fucked because of her parents and her grandparents her parents and grandparents like sins and mistakes. So now they are left with a world that is essentially dying, and now it's up to them to try and take the reins and bring it back to life, if you will.
Alongside this, we also get the first shot of the mayor of Paris.
Yes.
And they're talking to her about what to do, and she doesn't take the situation serious at all.
Yeah. So the entire police department, and this time we see Adil's boss, who is well acquainted with the mayor. They're all at the mayor's office, like demanding for something to be done for the shark to be taken out of the water before the triathlon. And like you said, the mayor doesn't seem to take it seriously.
But the significance of me bringing this up about how these two scenes kind of go back and forth and coexist with each other is because Mika's spinning the story that they want to kill this shark and kill anything that may hurt their perfect triathlon and like whatever, right?
Yeah.
And this is all about them. No, this is about the creatures of our planet. We got to save them. But the big thing there is that we finally get Sophia's full thoughts on it, and she informs the chief of police and the mayor will get her out without harming her. And that was supposed to be like, because in your mind, you're thinking, oh, fuck, a whole riot's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a whole miscommunication. Mika started some bullshit. But then Sophia doesn't actually even want to hurt the shark. They just want to get her out. You know? So it's like, that's where a lot of the drama starts coming up. And that's where you think it's going to head, which it kind of does. But when the people who want to preserve aquatic life meet the river police, something else kind of happens to shake the entire system up.
Yeah.
But I'll let Marva get into all of that.
So like MJ said, the police and Mika's following, if you will, do come in contact. But this is all because Mika creates almost like a rally inside the catacombs. Ben essentially is able to re-switch back on Lilith's tracker, which is something that she was not confident that she could do. Mind you, before all this, the police get tipped off about this gathering because of Ben.
Yes.
Ben comes and tells the whole group that, hey, Mika is off the chain. She is off her rockers. I don't know what's going on. She seems to be taking this like way too far. And she, like Ben, you can tell she's like almost conflicted with what she's doing because she keeps saying over and over again, I really shouldn't be here. I really shouldn't be saying this. But not only Sophia, but the police are also telling her, no, go ahead and tell us. We need to know all these things. We're not trying to kill Lilith. We're trying to get her out of here if we can. That's the big underlying statement right there, if they can. So, again, like the police get tipped off and Mika has her old gathering under the catacombs. And it's like, this is where you see the deeper part of the catacombs where like the sewage water and like just the water of like not only the CN but what the people use are there and they're all circulating and whatnot. Sophia and the river police have to cut through the dirt of it, if you will, to get to the cleaner part of the water. And at this point in the film, you see everybody creating a single file line and walking through this tunnel. And I knew this was going to be a recipe for disaster later on in the film, probably like 10, 15 minutes down the line. I was right, but we're going to get to that in just a little bit. So essentially, when Sophia and the river police crew make their appearance known with the conservationist group and just Mika's following, if you will, Mika takes the full initiative of diving into this deep pool, takes this sonar device that she was talking about earlier in the film, goes into the water with it, turns it on, and is trying to display not only to Ben, to herself, but everybody else in there that she can control these sharks. And at this point, you see Lilith come up into the water.
The big reveal. Yeah, go ahead.
And then you see Lilith's baby come out of the water.
Two of them.
There's two of them.
And it was already going to be a bitch and a half to just get Lilith out. Because I think we kind of skipped over it, but it was like a 2-second scene of like them gathering the gear to get Lilith out after the mayor conversation. And one of them made a point that it's going to be like, difficult. Yeah, with the size of Lilith, it's going to be hard. And we might barely be able to get them out. And we still need backup to come help us to get Lilith back into the ocean. So there's a whole other team of people coming.
Sophia even mentions they need experts to do this because it can't just be anybody. They need to sedate her. They need to net her. They need to put her out into the water. Now there's two of them.
Yeah.
So Mika, being the trendy person that she is, we're just going to leave it at that, the quirky person that she is, she reaches out and starts playing around with Lilith's baby. And Sophia and even Ben are begging Mika to come out of the water. Everybody else is applauding. They're going crazy because you can hear the sonar going off. You can see Mika like almost taming these sharks. And then out of nowhere, the two of them disappear. And then we get the iconic shot right after where it's almost like a recreation of, I think, a kill in Jaws 2, where Lilith, I think, dives under and jumps up and takes the chomp out of Mika. So we see Mika literally in the middle of Lilith's mouth and she just gets swallowed and chaos fucking breaks loose.
Scene.
Chaos breaks loose. People are running around screaming, trying to hold on to the walls, not fall into the water. Mind you, you have to get into the water at some point in order to get out of this dome, if you will. And people are pushing each other out of the way, stampeding each other, trampling each other, like climbing over bodies who are being helped by the police and other bystanders, and people are even being trampled in that tunnel. People are trying to shove each other out of the way. And you just see countless of bodies still fall into the water and so much blood being spilt that even with the low light setting that this dome had, the water is turning red.
People are dying because of Lilith and her baby. People are dying because they're getting stampede on. There's people trampled. There's people who are hitting their heads on the walls. Ben
gets a nasty ass kill too. Like one of the police officers starts pulling her up and then people start climbing over her, stomping on her, stepping on her. She bangs her head up against one of the stone walls. And
she almost gets like curb stomp, no Seth Rollins, right? Like someone like hits her head and her head goes right against the...
Yeah, and then that's it. We just see her kind of levitate and then go away. I think the police start shooting into the water.
Some people are getting killed that way too.
So some people were getting killed that way as well. And then I think lo and behold, like at the end of it all, maybe like at most a third of the people that were in there survived. Not counting all the injuries and everything, because there's a good amount of people who got out of there without their legs or their arms or both. But there was a lot of casualties. And this picked up a lot of traction where it started being covered on the news that there could be a shark in the Seine, and the mayor frantically is trying to cover up this whole situation, trying to spin it, saying that, oh, she's taking pride in the fact that sharks can even come into the Seine water because the Seine is actually becoming cleaner. Mind you, on the flip side, behind closed doors, she's freaking out, calling the police, telling them that they handled the situation poorly, that they should have told her that it was such a severe incident, and
which they did.
They did. And you can tell everybody's fucking annoyed and everybody's fucking pissed, and even Sophia calls her out on her bullshit. But that causes like weird tension between Sophia and the mayor that... Let's just say karma comes full circle. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. The police decide, and mind you, this is after many different situations of like them showing clips of the mayor debunking the allegations that the sharks are there.
Yeah.
This is like them defeated at the bar and don't know what to do. A whole bunch of people die. We're talking like at least
30, 40 people.
Yeah, so
minimum.
And a lot of that was probably covered up. So a lot of those people, families don't even know the real situation.
And if they do, they're not being allowed to really speak out. So it's going to be wanted to. Mind you, before you jump into the police undermining the mayor, this is when the police call on Sophia because they come to find out that they caught the baby shark, but the baby shark is dead. So Sophia goes into like an autopsy lab and starts examining the shark. She makes notations about the fact that the baby shark seems to almost have like a larger nose area, which allows for it to adapt to both salt water and fresh water. And then I think it also mentions that she mentions that the baby is only 2 months old. And whenever Sophia goes to cut into the baby's stomach, there's a bunch of baby sharks in there already. And Sophia then makes the connection that Lilith is the first of her kind. She doesn't need a male to procreate. And that she can self-procreate herself. And that if this one baby had this many baby sharks in her, mind you, all the babies that are coming out of Lilith are female, then how many more could be under the Seine right now? That's the underlying question. So then this causes a sense of urgency for the police. And that's what leads to them undermining the mayor. For sure, for sure.
And don't forget, Sophia, when talking to Abdul about it, actually straight up says, she is not just the first of her kind, but she doesn't even know if she can call her a shark.
She's the first of her own species.
Yeah.
She looks and acts like a shark, but she almost seems to be something else entirely.
Which is interesting, and it kind of goes back to what you said full circle with the whole Lilith, mother of demons type of situation, because, you know.
If she can self-procreate and she can create multiple copies of herself, then they almost refer to Lilith at that point as a demon, if you will. Like she's a force of nature to be reckoned with. She's almost like nature retaliating against all the evil doings that man have done against her. Like,
yeah,
the story becomes almost a little bit more poetic.
No, for sure. And we get a full rundown of the plan. And I think I brought up to you what I liked about this was the plan was shot very old school, where like it shows you, like they're telling you what the plan is over a voiceover or narration while they're like getting actually out into the ocean already.
And you see the panels of the plan actually playing out.
Yeah, so I thought that was like really cool. Not many movies do that anymore, and I thought that was dope to help with the time of the film, first of all, but also just kind of speed things up and kind of pace the movie a little bit better.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool to kind of get that.
And all the clips at this point are very nice. They're very pretty, like aesthetically and color-wise. It was very captivating.
We had to turn the Gobi camera lights on because like it was just so dope underwater in that scene. And speaking of the crew going underwater, when they get to the catacombs under Paris, we finally get to see just how many sharks there are. And man, I can't even give a number on how many there are, dude.
Imagine the school of fish that you see in Finding Nemo, the one that try and entertain Dory and make her like put her in a good mood. Probably that many, if not more, in sharks. And mind you, like this is at the end of the narration, so everybody's already underwater. Everybody's all geared up. They have C4, they have their explosives ready. They're setting all the bombs off. But the crew says, "Let's light up the flares and see how many there are for sure." When the camera panels up, you don't see the wall of the catacomb or the ceiling of the catacomb. The ceiling is covered in sharks, miniature Liliths. And it's petrifying. And
these miniature Liliths are not that miniature. They're like...
They're smaller than her, but they're pretty big and average size sharks, if you will. Not considering their age. They look full-grown sharks, but they're probably like 1 or 2 months old, right?
Yeah.
So,
and to think a lot of them probably have babies in them too.
Insane. It's fucking insane. Like my stomach dropped. And then right when my stomach dropped, all of a sudden I remember just seeing these sharks starting to pick off the crew members one by one.
And while this is happening, by the way, the triathlon's also happening and the people just got set into the water to do their race.
Yep.
In the Seine River.
In the Seine, the very same river that all these sharks are in. So
much tension, bro.
You can just feel the bad omens just playing out. And like everything's just stacking up against the entire crew, against people who are in the Seine, even the mayor, against Paris itself. So at this point, I think Adil and Sophia are one of the few survivors left. They are able to get a hold of the remote that sets off the explosives. Mind you, this remote has been passed down between 3 or 4 different crew members at this point. So the view, like me, I was convinced that the bomb wasn't going to go off and either Sophia and Adil were going to get eaten or they were going to have to swim away and figure out a different plan. One of the two. Yeah. But Sophia is successful in setting off the remote. Bombs go off and Sophia and Adil are the only survivors. But funny enough, when they get out of the catacomb area, they get out in the designated spot they were supposed to meet the 2 other crew members who didn't go into the water. And they get pulled onto the police life craft. But not without Lilith surviving.
Pulls a straight up Jaws move, bro.
And she's fucking pissed.
Flips. She didn't just... Okay, she actually might have outdid Jaws because she just didn't flip the boat over. She sent the boat like 15 feet into the air, bro. Like,
and flipped it over. Then started picking everybody off one by one. Again, Sophia and Adil are the only survivors after everybody else being chomped off. I think they don't even flip over the raft. They stay on top of the raft, flipped over. And Lilith then makes a beeline towards the swimmers of the triathlon because at this point she can hear all these bodies in the water, all these hearts pumping, like people breathing.
And mind you, she's pissed, dude.
You can tell she's upset. So she's not even eating anybody. She's just chomping at them for the sake of just chomping at them. Yeah. And once she gets to the group of the swimmers, you start seeing people getting pulled under, the water turning red. The viewers...
Under Paris.
The viewers on the sidelines start picking up on the fact that something's wrong because the swimmers are screaming out. Some of the swimmers, the ones up in the front lines, aren't picking up on this because obviously your head's underwater and you're more focused on your breathing than you are your surroundings. Yeah. But the group of the swimmers are getting smaller and smaller, and then the people who are outside of the water watching the triathlon pick up on the fact that there's a shark in the water. And this is where even more chaos breaks loose. Everybody who was on these like podiums and like flotation devices that allowed for them to stand on the Seine are running, trying to get back onto land. I think the mayor actually stays on this like buoy type contraption and it gets flipped over and she gets thrown into the water, same with everybody else. The police have been put onto the sidelines for this event. The mayor called for the military to come into play in case anything went wrong. And this is where the military really starts to fuck up. Yeah. Where they start trying to shoot at Lilith with their more advanced guns. And Lilith is evading them somehow in some way. But remember that war shell, that bombshell that the kids caught in the beginning of the movie with the magnetic fishing line? Yeah. That gets set off by the gunfire and Lilith weaving around the bullets, if you will. Yeah. And they flip underwater. They get triggered. And it causes a chain reaction of just explosives going off underwater in the Seine. Buildings, bridges, structures, sidewalks, everything is just collapsing in on itself and into the water. Lilith is still somehow making it through all this chaos. And you can see bodies being thrown around everywhere. It's not just Lilith anymore that's doing the killing. It's these bombs too. And I think at some point you see Adil and Sophia like hold on to each other because they see this giant wave coming towards them. Yeah. And they still, after all this, survive in some way. But when the chaos settles, it's another view.
They are able to swim to the surface. It's like the top of a building or something. Like
a smaller building, but a building nonetheless.
So they swim to the surface of that, and they made it out of the water technically, so they're kind of safe maybe. But not entirely, because once they get a hold of what's going on, they look at where they're at. They are indeed on the top of a building, and they look around and they see a lot of other buildings covered by water too. And then the camera pans away from them and is now more focused on just the general view of Paris or Seine or whatever. And it's now
completely immersed in water. But before this camera completely pans out, you see all the shark fins start. At first, you see this giant shark fin pop up, which you know it's Lilith.
Lilith, yeah.
And then you see a bunch of smaller ones pop up, which you know are her children.
They were no longer
trapped
in the catacombs. They're now there and
out and about.
So I guess maybe Mika got her way. Nature won in the end.
Nature won in the end. Nature retaliated, because that's where the movie ends. There is no happy ending with this one. You know for a fact that not only Paris is fucked, but when these sharks go and swim through the water and get to the rest of the ocean, they are going to wreak havoc for the rest of the world.
Yep.
I thought it was a good film. I haven't seen a movie with like a sad ending in a while, or not even a sad ending, like a realistic ending in a while.
It's rated really low. Like it's 30% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
But like I always say, just because Marva and I look at Rotten Tomatoes to kind of gauge what people are thinking, we don't always take it seriously. Because like I like Halloween 2 as an example, the 1981 version, and that's rated like at 30%. So it's like it just depends on your experience and I guess perspective.
I would rate this at like an 8.5, 9.
I'd give it like a 8 probably. Yeah. So I think the acting helped a lot for this film for me. Yeah,
it did. There were corny moments, don't get me wrong, but like MJ was saying, like, you have to build your own opinions. You can't always follow the masses, because if that's the case, then you and I wouldn't be fans of Venom, or you wouldn't be fans of a fan of Halloween 2, or even some of the lower rated films where I'm a fan of that I can't really think of right now. But all in all, it's a decent watch. I know a lot of people were talking about it for a hot minute. I saw a lot of like searches about what Under Paris is about, really. So it was pretty interesting to kind of see the traction and the momentum of this film build throughout the last couple of weeks. But overall, I think it was a pretty decent current film and a pretty decent like foreign horror film, if you will.
Yeah. Since we've kind of already reviewed Something is in the Water on TikTok, and we have reviewed this on the channel and on the podcast, we should probably review The Black Demon at some point too.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind sitting back and watching it again.
Because it's kind of got a similar concept, just different regions, different legends. Like it's
different execution.
Like we destroying the world with oil, so like Mother Nature fights back, creates a spirit, type shit.
This takes more of like a biological and like scientifical approach.
Like World War Z said, man, that scientist in Harvard, Mother Nature is the best serial killer.
Yep.
So
finds a way of like evening things out. Now, whether it's good or bad, it depends on whose side you're on, really.
Mother Nature has the highest fucking body count, bro.
Yep. All respects to her, by the way.
Yes. But anyways, thank you guys for tuning in, as always, to the Slashers to Sink podcast. This has been our review and discussion and reaction to Under Paris, or what is it?
Sous la Seine.
There you go. So thank you for tuning in. As always, make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, and make sure to follow if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Also, make sure to comment down below your thoughts, and if you have any suggestions of what you want us to watch or check out or just review, let us know that as well.
Oh, what universe you want us to jump into? Because I mean, we have Insidious, we have the It universe. There's a few different franchises. The Conjuring as well. If you really wanted that, just let us know.
Dude, we got content for years, and I'm not even like we still haven't even reviewed like things. No pun intended, like The Thing. Yeah. We haven't reviewed movies like that. Like They Live. There's a lot of like Prince of Darkness.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like even John Carpenter horror movies that we haven't talked about yet.
Yes.
So it's Stephen King too. Mm-hmm. We got content for you guys for like the next few years.
But let us know what you're interested in so we can know where to navigate.
Exactly. But go ahead and again, let us know what you think about Under in Paris, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.